We're just going to cover a few quick things and go through making sure the group is set up for the hockey evaluations coming up. We'll go through our template very quickly, talk about player imports, talk about creating an event, making sure kids are automatically or added to lists like we want to see them, and just go through different scenarios that you might have in a hockey organization about after the skills session, how to sort those kids very quickly onto the next teams before they start a scrimmage and that kind of thing. So we'll step through all that and be very quick about it. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is share my screen. And I will, there. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen now. This is our homepage after we've created our SkillShark account. And basically, you know, this is the main homepage, shows kind of a dashboard of things. It shows how many players are in the group, how many events we might have, how many scores we've gathered at this point. Let's assume that we haven't gathered any scores at this point. I'm going to use this data later on just to show you reports. But the very first thing I'm going to go into here, and we're going to cover a lot of best practices along the way. One of the things I'm going to go into is reports at the very end. We just launched a bunch of new things specific to hockey evaluations. The cumulative report is going to make your life incredibly easy, and we're going to save that for the end. But first of all, in this group, let's go into our template and just make sure that this is where we decide on exactly as a hockey organization, exactly what we want to measure for kids. So as you can see here, we've got two main categories, positional and goalie, and then there's a number of skills, and within those skills, there might be different metrics within. And this is all fully customizable. The next thing, preferred positions. In this case, you know, you might have it just marked defense, forwards, goalies, that kind of thing. These abbreviations here, or these labels here, should line up exactly what your registration system is using. So for example, if kids register on your website, whatever that is, and you might have a drop down for choosing forwards or defense, don't let them freeform the text. Make sure that it's from a drop down menu so that they can't misspell things and that kind of stuff. And then as long as this lines up with your registration site, you'll be able to immediately import that into SkillShark. The other thing that we might have set up here are pre-filled comments for your evaluators. So for the different skills, you can have a bunch of any pieces of coaching advice, like, you know, needs to work on something, and also encouraging comments. And then the evaluators can just tap it in with their finger rather than typing it out each and every time. Okay, let's jump to the players page. So on the players page now, I've already got a bunch of headshots here and a bunch of data tied to these real players. But let's say I wanted to import brand new. So we can import from a number of different sources, any spreadsheet, which we're going to take a look at in a second, and a number of different registration sites out there. The registration, or the spreadsheet, I should say, that we've got here, let's say this is and I'll just share my screen here so that I can show you this. Yeah, give me a second. I'm going to change to my Excel screen. There. So now you should be able to see that. This Excel sheet, I've got column headers here. And for example, if we have a column called bib number and, you know, color, we would automatically data map those things in SkillShark. Same thing with email, last name, first name, etc. Date of birth, that's pretty handy. Gender might be appropriate. You don't have to have all these things, just whatever you want to import. At the very least, you do need first name, last name, And the other thing that we're going to assume is not everybody's a goalie and not everybody's a positional player. So just by having two columns that line up with exactly what your categories were, goalie or positional, and just put an X beside any kid's name, we know exactly which ones are the forwards and defensemen and which ones are the goalies. So the other thing you can do is you also want to do all your ages in the same group, assuming that you're measuring the same thing for all the kids. Even if you're measuring different things for younger age groups versus older age groups, you can do that simply in the same group just by making different categories. You might have a category called positional for U10s or that kind of thing, and then a category for U14s or 15s, whatever the case may be. In this case, we're just going to assume everybody's being measured on the same thing, but you're never going to have kids from different age groups on the ice likely at the same time. So this is where you can pre-assign kids to time trials groups. Like here's my group of U13, group 1, 2, etc., that kind of thing, as well as a column that ties all the kids to their appropriate age. So, and there's basically three different types of ways to map the data into SkillShark. And the first one is built-in fields. So for example, like jersey number, jersey color, email, first name, last name, date of birth, gender, primary position, those are already built into SkillShark. So you can just map directly into those. The other different types are custom labels. So this might be something that you want to import because you want it to appear on the kid's report card at the end. So something like age, or you're probably not going to put the time trials on the kid's report card, but you might want to put their age on there. So I might data map that to a custom field in SkillShark. And the other thing that you might want to tie, the other purpose of importing would be to send it to an automatic list. And what the list allows you to do, it doesn't appear on the kid's report card, but it allows you to very quickly sort, hey, I only want to take a look at my U13 group 1 kids or my U15 group 2 kids, that kind of thing, in the mobile app when I'm running reports on the website. So lists are very useful that way. Okay. I'm going to switch back screens now to the SkillShark app. Okay, so you should be able to see that screen now again. Let's say I wanted to take that sheet now and import it. So I'm just going to click on import, select the spreadsheet option, and the spreadsheet that I'm going to bring in is the same one that we called the Bobcats. Continue. Anything you see with a green check mark is just automatically data mapped into SkillShark. But the things that aren't, you might have to manually add. For example, the group, we might, in this case, we're going to tie it to a custom field called group in SkillShark. We might want to bring in that column that identifies whether or not the kid has a parent who wants to coach. That's pretty important. Age. For age, we could also bring that into, we're going to bring that into a custom field. And time trials, we're also going to, let's say we want to automatically, that was the column that had whether or not the kid was U13, group 1, group 2, that kind of thing. We're going to tie that to a player list. We're going to automatically create player lists based on what was in that column. Goalie, we're going to tie to the goalie category, positional, whether or not they were a positional player, we're going to tie there. We're going to go continue. We can see everything there. And we're just going to click on import. And boom, it's imported. And now you can see it automatically created these kids and automatically tied them to lists based on that data that we had in the one column of the spreadsheet. We know exactly which kids are in U13 group 1 or group 2, etc. So we can quickly filter just to see those players. I'm going to just leave it on all players here right now. Let's assume now I want to have a pretty good data set. What I'm going to do here is assume that all these kids are in the same age group. So let's say I'm going to start over and just delete these lists from view. And let's assume that they're all U13s. Okay. And I'll show you why here in a second. So let's assume that they're all U13s. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to take all of them, and under bulk actions, I can do it right here on the players page. I can add kids to a player list, and I'm going to call it U13s. I'm going to go hit create and save. And now I've got all the kids on that age list. If I wanted to, for my initial skate, I don't know who's good and who's bad kind of thing. So the other thing I want to do is sort these kids into 6 random teams. So I'm going to select them all. And actually, before I select them all, I'm going to say, I'm going to choose only the kids who are identified as forwards. So left wing, right wing, and centers. And that's 46 players. I'm going to select those 46, and under bulk actions, I'm going to auto assign. And there's 2 ways that you can auto assign, and we'll go through these along the way with some other report examples once we gather data. But to begin with, I might want to sort them based on their age, or in this case, I want to assign them just randomly onto different lists. So I'm going to select 6 random teams. I'm going to sort them onto 6 teams. And I'm going to call it just team, and I'm going to leave it blank because whatever at the very end of this, it's going to put in a 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 6, and just randomly distribute these kids. So if I hit save, all of these kids now are just randomly added as far as the forwards go onto team 1 through 6. I probably should have put the label as team forwards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now let's do the same thing for defense. So I'm going to take this off. I'm going to show just the defensemen. And there we have 45. I'm going to select them all. And I'm going to add to player lists. And, oh, sorry. I'm going to auto assign randomly. And again, I'm going to make 6 lists. Players, it's going to be team. I'll call it defense team, and then just let it autofill. And boom, there's our 6 random assignments of defense. For these, we'll just remember that this should be forwards team 1. Now I have to do the goalies, and I may not have, well, I'll just leave the goalies, but you kind of get the idea. Okay. So there we've got them randomly assigned to teams. Now it's time to run an event. So let's say we run this event, and the very first thing we're going to do is actually, let's say we did a skills session. So in the mobile app, we would have gathered data, and gathered a bunch of data at the skills session. Let's say we want to take a look at what that looks like, the rankings after the skills session. So I can go here to cumulative reports, and I'm going to, let's take a look at what we got here. So in cumulative reports, this is where I can assign weightings, not only to how the kid did on the different skills that might have been in the skills session, like passing, shooting, skating. I could have had game sense turned on there. I can also weight the actual metrics within each skill. So in this case, I'm just assuming everything is equally balanced. They're all each worth 16% of the total. These numbers really are just relational to each other. They don't have to add up to 100, but it makes it a lot simpler if you do it. For example, receipt, I might put 40% weighting on how they receive a pass relative to 60% weighting on how they deliver. that kind of thing. The next screen over is events. Now, if I want to figure out the rankings here, I'm going to select I'm just doing this after the skill session, and I'm going to hit save. All right, so in this report for cumulative reports, let's go ahead and view what that looks like. And there we've got all the kids ranked from best to worst, and now we can figure out, okay, who's going to be skating on the next for skate 1 kind of thing. So the way to do that, again, this is everybody that we actually, includes all the evaluators' data. I can select anyone who I've got filtered. Now, if we take a look here, I've got data here for forwards, defense, all that kind of stuff. Let's say I only want to take a look at my forwards to begin with. Here, I'll unselect. I only want to take a look at the data for the forwards. And I've got 29 players, and I want to figure out, of my kids who I have data here for, I want to select them all. And then under bulk actions, I want to auto assign them to a player list based on what they scored. So if I wanted to do it in a ranked fashion, that means I'm expecting to put all the best kids on team A, all the next kids on team B, etc., down the list. But if I'm doing this in a hockey evaluation, typically I want to go with a balanced fashion, where I'm going to say, of these kids that showed up to the skill session, I want to separate them into, let's say, 3 equal teams or 4 equal teams. Let's go with 6. I'm going to base it on what their overall score here is. And the number of lists, let's say I'm going to make 6 player lists out of all these kids. And the team is going to be forwards, team blank. Also add in after skills session, team blank. And if I do that, I don't see anything here, but I can see it here in the player list. So I can see that I've got now 6 equal distributions of, here's team 1, etc. So you can actually go through and see any of the teams here. Okay, now let's do the same thing for defense. So I'm going to go up here. I'm going to select just my defensemen, which there's 28 of. I'm going to select them all. And under bulk actions, go to auto assign in a balanced fashion. And I'm going to take and separate, base that on their overall score into 6 teams. And I'm going to call this defense after skills team. And there, and now we've also got defense after skills team 1 through 6. So in the next event, when your evaluators are picking and choosing their list of players, they can pick, hey, I only want to see, let's say, the defense and forwards for team 1. And then, or let's say it's team 1 versus team 2. I'm just going to filter in the mobile app to see those 4 lists. And now I've got everybody who are going to show up in the mobile app like that. So pretty easy. There's all my forwards and defense for those teams. Perfect. Okay. Next, now this is where we get also into the next layer of power of the cumulative report. Let's say we have done scrimmages for all these kids, and now it's time to figure out who's on, well, after the first skate, they might have been sorted onto, let's say, equally balanced teams. Somewhere along in your hockey evaluations, you're going to want to separate the cream to the top. So let's see how you would do that. Cumulative, if I run a brand new cumulative report, I'm going to call this, let's say, rankings after skate 1, something like that. And I'm not going to put everything in here just because I don't want to consume too much time on that. Let's say we just put in 40% weighting on passing, 60% on shooting. Go continue. And then I choose my events that I want to take into account. So let's say I'm going to take into account the skill session and skate 1. So when I do that, these boxes open up. Now, here's the best thing about cumulative reports, and this is the whole reason why we made it. If you think about as you're going through a hockey evaluation and the cream are rising to the top, an 8 that I might give as an evaluator to a kid when they're playing against the 2 elite teams playing against each other should not be worth the same thing as an 8 I give to a kid who's playing in the lower tier against lesser skilled players. So the way to accomplish that is I can go here and say, let's say my teams 1 and 2 are my best teams, and 3 and 4 is the next level, and 5 and 6 are the next level. I can take those teams and I can, let's say, modify. I'll show you something here in a sec. Let's say initially these are all the balanced ones, and I'm going to create that. I'm not going to modify these at all because they're all balanced teams, and I don't want to penalize anybody. After I create that, let's say I'm on the next skate and I've sorted them into tier 1, 2, 3, and 4, where 1 and 2 are the best, 3 and 4 is the next. Then I can come in here and modify these things by, put in modifiers that takes into account the fact that these kids are not playing against the best of the best. The skill session, I'm not going to do that with because those were all randomly created anyways. And I hit my report, and now I've got this. And when I go into my next tier of skates, here's the way that I sort them onto those best onto the top 2 and next onto the next 2 and that kind of thing. So if you think I'm going to separate the top third of my 6 teams, so I'm going to have teams 1 and 2 for the next, I want those to be balanced. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select all of my forwards again. And there we've got there. And based on this overall score ranking and the recipe that I put in, I'm going to highlight them all. And this time, I'm going to only sort them onto 3, based on their overall score, separate them onto 3 lists, because I want list 1 to be the top 2 teams, list 2 to be the next clump of 2 teams, and list 3 to be the bottom 2 teams. And I'm going to say top third after skate 1. And I'll call it teams because it's going to have multiple teams in it. Hit save. Now I've got 2 players which comprise about 2 teams shown here in the top third. And now I select those guys. And if I want to distribute those in a balanced fashion, I just select those forwards from that and base it on their overall score. I'm going to select number of teams as 2. And the player list I'm going to call top third team blank. And now if I look in here, I've got 2 teams, as far as the forwards go, top third team 1 and top third team 2. Let's do it for the defense. I probably should have called that top third forwards. For the defense, I'm going to start off fresh here. So I'm viewing all the kids. and I want to view only the defensemen. And I'm going to select them all, and I'm going to auto assign them in a ranked fashion because I want to separate them into thirds based on their overall score, 3 player lists, and I'll be more descriptive here. The player list name would be defenseman after skate 1, third. So, and if I look at player lists again, there I've got 3 lists. So this first list would represent my top clump of defensemen that represents 2 teams worth. And then I can take just that list, select them all, and now split them onto 2 balanced teams on their overall score for defensemen, top third. Save. And now if I do that for all of the thirds, so like second, third, and third, in the mobile app, you'll be able to say, okay, this represents my top forwards. I should have put forward in that label. The defenseman represents that. Those are my, here, I'll clear out my view. Those represent the top 2/3 of, that for team 1, this is my team. If I wanted to see team 2, I could say top third there, defenseman top third. That's team 2. If I wanted to simplify this, instead of having them on separate lists, I could then just quickly select them all and auto assign to a player list. Again, either on this page, or let's say I want to actually, let's say I'm done all my skates and now it's time to create teams. Let's say this is my top team. I just go here, create a team. I'm going to call it top U13 team. I could assign a coach, create, and it would, so that kid's in there. And I could do that for all of my kids that I had in the view. All right. Okay. I'm going to switch back to the let's see here. Okay, let's go back to, I'll stop sharing. All right. Yeah, with that, this was, fairly quick. If there's anybody that's got any questions, like if we didn't cover something, if we maybe went over something too quickly and you need it, you want to ask something in more detail, right on our website, if you go to SkillShark.com, there, right in the upper right-hand corner, you can click on Book Demo, and any one of our team would be happy to sit down with you. Just choose a time that works around your schedule, and we would be happy to answer any